Alright, I got everything here. I got two different ship kits, so I'll be able to replace every spring inside the valve body. And I got to drill some holes, change some springs out in the kit, and I got a new filter for it. We're going to tear it all apart and put all new springs in the valves and make sure this valve body's ready to go. Okay, so I got this valve body. First you take the filter off and then you split it away, and you get just the valve body. So you want this to come off that plate, but the plate actually comes off like this because there's a check ball and two springs and a spring and a hat, and the spring and the hat goes right there, and one check ball goes right there, and the other ball and spring goes here. I got a earlier than 77, so there's no ball here. So this is like a 76 by the casting number on the other side. So that casting number right there. The C tells me the year, and the 8 is the decade. The C's the decade, and the 8 is a year. So what we're going to do is follow the directions on this rebuild kit. One of the things it tells me to do is I have to drill a cross hole in this for a heavy duty and towing in a diesel. So what we're going to do is drill a lower. It says do not go, 6. Do not drill a 16th, anything over a 16th hole in there. The other kit says 0.55, which is not a 16th, and they give me a drill bit. So there's no hole drilled in there yet between those two pockets. And it had a minor shift kit put in it before. So we're going to follow the directions and take every one of these valves out and put all new springs in this kit before we put it back in the make this thing shift pretty hard. And it has a couple other things in the other kit on how to sand the drum for the. I got a brand new band, second shift band, and I got a brand new filter. I replaced that old filter, and we're gonna start now. I'll show you each valve as I tear it apart and put new springs in it. Okay, so step one, we're going to use this. This comes with more springs in it, so we're going to try to use most of the springs out of this Transco kit. So there's a diesel and a gas, but this is a gas application. So the very first thing we need to do is pull this valve out here, which is the boost valve. So I got it all pulled out. I need to pull the boost valve out of the inside there and make sure it shifts. But here's the factory set of springs, and we're gonna put these new dual blue springs in, clean it up, make sure everything shifts, and then that end cap has to go with the groove back on. So we're gonna do that. Put this valve back together now. Alright, I got it all back together, and it has to be able to drop down there flush to where that plate will come on, and the valve is already seated all the way in. So now I can put that plate. It has a groove on the other side. I'll be able to put that plate back on and torque it to the 40 inch-pounds. So we got this one valve rebuilt. Alright, so I've taken the side plate off these valves, and we're going to start going through and replacing the springs on it. Okay, I got all the valves pulled out, Trick is to have like a little magnet, and then you can go in there and fish, pull out the stuff. Some things you just gotta tap and let it come out. The nice thing about the kit is if it doesn't come out exactly right, and you lose the position, you can, like that T and B valve fell out of me, and I knew that, hey, it goes into that slot. So what we're going to do now is just follow the directions and put the springs back, put this back together the way the kit says to put it back together. Now this cutback spring, we're going to actually use a spring out of the other kit. And there is people that completely block these off so that cutback can't happen at all, but we're going to force it not to be able to lose pressure, so it'll hold pressure, longer with the spring instead of blocking it all the way off. So this cutback, that this kit doesn't come with the spring, we're going to use the spring out of this one and put it in there. All right. So here's the directions on what that cut valve, what that spring is going to do. So it says install the black spring in the valve body first, and then install the cutback valve. Note this spring is not in the stock valve body, and it's only for heavy duty and towing applications. This spring gives you very firm shifts. The black spring holds the valve cover open. We got to trim the spring so we can actually get that plate back on. So they're effectively blocking it off. Some people actually block it off, but we're just going to make it to where it's harder for it to push it open. I mean, it's effectively blocking it off, but it's going to hold the pressure in there longer. Okay, the coasting valve gets no spring, it just goes in. It's the next one in line. So we just want to make sure it shifts. If it's not stuck in there, we're good. So we're going to work on the first and second shift valve now. And it tells us to put a new blue spring in. So we're going to get the blue spring out of the kit and put the first and second shift valve in. You can see the difference between the new blue spring. Oh, I'll have to find that. And how easy this one is to push. And it's not as long. So we're going to put it back together. We're going to clean all this off, make sure it shifts, put the blue spring in, shove that first and second shift back in. Okay, I found my blue spring. We're going to put it in the hole and put the first and second valve in. Alright, so I got that first one in and I've made sure it moves. Now I can drop the second one in. Of course, I got the drawing to look at and make sure that it goes in the same way. If nothing else, this drawing is worth the 26 bucks on eBay. So we play with it, it'll drop in there. You see how it's in there and moves freely. So that's what we're checking with these valves. Okay, so now we'll go to the second and third shift valve and get it to go in there with the new spring. Now the second and third shift valve tells me to measure the T and B valve. So circle the spot that matches the T and B valve size. So I need to measure this hole for the size of this TBV valve, and then match the size to it. So I'm going to mic it and see what I got here. So mine's a 0.30. So it tells us to grab on a gas application 0.30 and 0.318 should be brown. So I got to get the brown spring out of the kit. The difference between the brown spring and the stock spring. So it's a little bit longer and a little bit tougher. So it just makes this thing shift harder. So we're gonna take and put the brown spring in now on top of the TV valve. Now I had to take that TV valve and I had to take a little awl in there and get it started. So I already know that it's slid in and moving around like the other one. So we're gonna put the spring in on it and then put the rest of the if it was a diesel, there's two different springs for the diesel depending on how the valve is. I have a no step valve and I'm using a gas application, so I don't use this extra spring. The diesel has more torque, so they hold it even harder. So we don't use this spring. So this box and that spring doesn't matter to us. So neither kit messes with the 2 to 3 back out spring. So we reuse the factory spring. Of course, we tested, that valve is going up and down, not stuck. So we'll put the 2 to 3 back out valve in now. This kit gives us 3 different springs for the accumulator spring. First to second shift firmness. We're going to use the springs out of the other kit where it just tells us to put these two together. So it tells us to put the pink and the white one together. So first the accumulator goes in. You can see the difference here. Let me lay the valve body over so I don't lose the work that I've done. So there's the factory ones. We're going to put this and it's pretty close to being the same. But we're going to put these new springs in from that kit, the pink and the white one, and put the accumulator back in. This is the one that you'll see guys when they build drag cars. They'll either machine a piece or they'll even stack it full of pennies to where this one cannot move at all. So we're not going to actually block this one all the way off because we're not building a drag car. We just want this thing to really, like, if I hook up a bobcat or something behind it, that it actually pulls way into the gear before it shifts, and he actually uses those 410 gears and the lower bands in the transmission. Okay, I'm gonna put this accumulator together now. So the next one is the servo regulator pressure, and since we're going to use the large servo spring from that kit, we're going to go ahead and use the yellow spring that it calls for that servo regulator. So inside the servo, inside the transmission, we're gonna put that in instead of the factory spring. But we'll use the yellow one since we're gonna use them together on that, and not use this kit's spring. Okay, so I got everything rebuilt and everything moves around. So we're gonna go put that side cover back on, and then torque all these bolts down to 40 inch-pounds. So if you want to, there's videos on this on YouTube, but nobody really like shows you up close, even the people that make the kits. So I bought this off of Amazon for like 20 bucks, and it takes a 5/16 socket, and you just pull it till you get to 40 inch-pounds there. So it's pretty simple. It doesn't, I think I paid 12 bucks for that. All right, so we're gonna put this together now. So putting the end cap back on, you see the passageways. So that has to go in. So it's actually upside down right now. So just letting you know that has to go in, be put on right. You're not going to see those once you get it bolted on. So remember how it told us to check, make sure that was drawed back all the way. So that plate's on. and we got the channels to the inside. You can only bolt it on one way. I mean, you can pull it on two ways, but you'll see the channels if you do it wrong. So we got all these valves rebuilt, and we got this valve rebuilt. So now it tells us to take these low scheduling valve, the throttle boost valve, and the kickdown valve out, and change these springs. Actually, it only tells us to put the new white spring in on the low scheduling valve. And this kit doesn't even show it to be touched, like it doesn't show that one to be touched. So the Transco kit is a little more in depth than the Shift Technologies, and they cost the same, but you don't get it doesn't make the cutback valve for first gearing, you know. It doesn't neither one does anything for the cutback for second and third, but this one, the Shift Technologies kit makes first gear. Basically, it doesn't cut back any pressure for first gear. It doesn't allow it to release. That thing is, you're digging. So we're going to leave that in there from this kit. And we're going to use, and the servo stuff doesn't come. So really between the two kits, you can make a pretty hot valve body for Ford, it looks like. Just stepping it up. So we're going to go and change these other springs and drill the holes and stuff like it tells us to. Okay, so I've the low scheduling valve. I've taken it out. I've had to tap it out to clean it, but I got it to where I know it'll go in and out there and float around. So I see it moves. And then the throttle boost valve here, I just made sure I've got it cleaned and made sure that it moves. So now I put the white spring in there and put the cap back on. The kickdown one, you can take that plate out, but you see how easy it moves, so it's not. That's where that kickdown fork is going to push. So we don't need to take it out. I'm going to put that white spring on there and then put the cap back on. This cap's the same way as the other one. It has a groove in it, so the groove has to go towards it. And I just noticed on this here, it says these instructions may be a little bit better because it says leave all plate bolts loose until the valve bodies are together. So all the ones that I've torqued, I'm going to loosen them back up. But I need to tighten this one down to make sure that cover pulled tight, like it said. So I'm going to loosen all the covers back up and then put the valve bodies together and then do the inch-pound torquing. Okay, new white springs on. This valve still moves in and out. Put the cap plate back on the right way. Okay, the directions show that use the yellow spring for this converter relief. New yellow converter relief goes in this hole in the valve body. So when we go to put it back together, this and the hat goes in there. And then the 77 later has a check ball that goes here, and they all have a check ball that goes right there. This is really hard information for me to find earlier when I took this apart. But if you buy the kit, it all comes, it says check ball, all models, check ball 77 and up. And then it gives me a new throttle relief valve instead of using a ball. It uses this pen valve. So we have to measure the land on the boost, and all gas models say use a pink screen, so we don't have to measure it for, that's only for doing a diesel. So we are going to use the pink spring and the new throttle relief valve. Okay, so I got a 0.55 drill bit. It's real tiny here, and This one says 5.5 to 6.3, and it shows a picture. This picture is not really as good as the other kit's picture, but they both call out for it. This kit here on the heavy duty side is in towing and diesel, it says to do it. And it's right here, number 6. And it says it's an optional step to drill a 1/16 hole. So we're going to drill the smaller hole, but it says do not drill bigger than 1/16, and do not and this prevents the loss of converter lube during heavy throttle. So you can't drill it bigger than 1/16. So we're going to drill it the size. This one gives you a little better information, instead of just a sloppy hole that you don't make too sloppy. If you notice, the picture for the port on 6 is actually a little bit better. So it's this wall right here needs drilled. And I've checked the valve body to make sure that, because somebody else could have came in here and put a hole in. So we're going to drill a hole right there in that wall. And then we're going to spray it out with brake clean. We're going to do it with the valve in there so it can't get caught up inside like the actual bore part. So we're going to drill right there in between that wall. And then we're going to blow it out really well. All right, so you see I got a hole drilled in there. And it's drilled in the passageway that both kits show you to drill it in. So I touched that other wall, but it didn't actually go into anything. It was really easy to drill. It's just cast aluminum. So here we go. That's going to keep converter pressure lubed, they say. So that was that. Now it tells us to drill holes in this actual valve body. So said gasket must, so this hole A right there in the valve body says on a gas we need to drill it out 0.76 to 0.89. So we're going to take this plate off by taking these 3 bolts out and unbolt it from the other side, and we're going to drill that plate open. Remember when I said somebody put a ship kit in this before, but I don't know how many decades ago it was. That's already drilled out to size. So I put an 8/9 drill bit in there and it drops in. Now this kit actually says to drill it with an 1/8 inch drill bit, and they provide a drill bit. So it's already drilled. We're not gonna, the 0.90 drill bit drops right in. And this gas, it says to drill it for 0.89. So we're gonna say that hole's drilled already. But if you check that hole and it wasn't to size by dropping a pin or a drill bit in it, now I'm going to check to make sure. I'm going to do like it visually says that none of the holes are blocked by the gasket. So I'm going to look at it. And then if it's all done, we're going to put it back together. And it's basically a full valve body rebuild, and it's put together pretty tough. So you can see I got a drill bit here. It says 105. And it drops right in that hole. So that A hole right there has already been drilled on this valve body. So we don't have to do that. I just got to make sure none of the holes are plugged here. And as long as none of the holes are plugged with the gasket that I put in, I've already put in a gasket. I cleaned that out. I blew it all out very clean and cleaned all the fuel out, all the dirt out of it. It's got a new gasket. It's already been torqued. Directions say to leave these bolts loose, and these are actually supposed to be 25 to 30 pounds. This direction set is a lot better. I mean, this Transco kit, you can buy it off eBay. I mean, it tells me the bolts, the types, tells me how to do the governor stuff. It tells me the bolt lengths, bolt specs. So and it tells me how to do band adjustments, kickdown adjustments, vacuum modulations. So this is probably a better kit, but I've used some of the servo stuff that doesn't come in that kit. It comes in this one. This one probably just gives you second or third gear shifts. Between the two, I've got this really it's gonna really put that transmission to work. So, all right, I'm gonna bolt the two. I'm gonna loosen this up like it told me, and I'm gonna bolt the two together and call it a valve body rebuild. All right, so I've dropped a new pink spring in and a new valve instead of the ball. I don't really know what that's doing, but I got the converter relief and the new yellow spring, and then the 1/4-inch ball. Like I said, if you have an older one, it'll drop in right here. But I recommend just at least buy one of the kits, and then you'll have all the information on this stuff. And the other ball will drop in right there. It took me forever to figure that out, because when I thought I had everything out, and when I turned it over, it fell out. I didn't know where it came from. So I got hours in finding that it goes right there. Especially if you have one of these older valve bodies. So, and it's all cleaned. It's all been brake cleaned. The gasket was stuck to it, so I got a new gasket and everything. So we're gonna put this together and tighten it down now. All right, so I got the two halves bolted together. Now this one with the tag is a longer bolt, and this one right here on this boss that's raised up is a longer bolt. All these other bolts are the same. And then I tighten down the caps. All the end valve caps are all tight now. So now I'm ready to put the new filter on. So I got a new gasket, and I got a new 4-wheel drive filter. One of these bolts is longer too, and I'll have to figure out which one it is. So we're going to take the rubber out of that new filter, and we're going to take some kind of chisel, and we're going to knock it down all 4 sides. So even if that pan was to get knocked up in there, 4-wheel driving around, it most likely won't shut this all the way off. It'll still be able to suck it through the filter. So we're going to go ahead. Now when I open that thing up, it sliced me, so watch it when you bring it out of the bag. I got sliced pretty good. So we're going to figure out which one's the long bolt, and we're going to bolt this new filter on. Okay, it's this bolt right here, that's the longer bolt. It goes into a long boss over here on the other side. So, see it right there? So that's the longer bolt. And then you notice now with this crushed that it can't ever get blocked off. That rubber seal that was in there, if that pan came up against it, it could just suck it dry. So we're gonna do that, and then as I lightly tapped it to get the warp around, so you see the gasket's all sealed up. But if that pan comes up again in contact, it'll never go dry that way. I mean, I guess you would really have to smash it. But that's a transmission builder trick that I seen on these. So now the whole valve body's done. and it's ready to go in the truck. It's got all these springs. I'm not running on 50-year-old springs, and all the valves move, and everything should be pretty high pressure, and I feel pretty good about it. So it's got a shift kit put in it basically, and and it's a D10 valve body. So how do I know it's a D10 valve body? So see those D10s in there? So the non-D10 valve body has a big flat spot in it. I got one over there I can show you. But this one, I can hold it in first or hold it in second. So it's actually an automatic. If you put it in third gear, well, you can pull it down and hold it in second or third. And so she should be a good unit now. I'll go show you that other valve body. So you see how that valve body, it doesn't have any detents, it just floats. So you put this in drive, even if you pull it in the second, if you're up too high in second, it won't hold second. It'll go ahead and shift itself into third. But with this valve body with the detents, I can, like, if I'm pushing snow or trying to put a big load up a hill, I can keep it in second, where this transmission won't, or valve body won't. So we rebuilt this one and souped her up, and we have a spare to go back to if it doesn't work well. But if you're wanting to do these kind of C6 valve body, I recommend look up either Nick's transmissions or Performance transmissions on YouTube. Both of them helped me a lot in rebuilding these. Now, I don't think their pictures were close enough for me to see some of the stuff. So anyway, I feel good, and we'll build the transmission and shove it in there. If you like this kind of stuff, check back in.